Good morning. I'm Puryear, speaking to you for the Logos Center. I'm truly delighted to be able to talk with you on this glorious morning, this glorious Easter morning. He is risen. The Christ is risen today. And we celebrate that especially at this time because of the season and what's happening in the world and seeking a better understanding of our role and what's coming up. Edgar Casey gave 3 special readings on Easter, and mainly he said, this is a time for rededication. One of the ways I've been talking about that is to say, this is a time to put your religion to work. Better, this is a time to put your faith to work, or this is a time to manifest that spirituality. You've always been saying, I'm not a religious person, but a spiritual person. Now's the time to be spiritual. So we have a work to do. Casey said it's no chance, just by chance that he rose on the day, like as it were, of spring when new life is bursting out all over. And the readings confirm that he did indeed die completely. He even says the soul was separated from the physical body and that there was indeed the resurrection and the resurrection appearances afterward. I'm fascinated by these. On one occasion, he says he didn't just walk through walls, he remanifested a physical body when he entered the room. And the one that's most fascinating to me is that he met them on that Easter morn at the Sea of Galilee. And they'd been out fishing all day, all night, and having no luck at all. And as he saw them coming, he asked if they'd caught anything. They said no. He said, cast your net over the side. And sure enough, 153, which is a 9, which I think is symbolic. And then the readings tell us that he served fish and honey to his disciples. I've rather elaborately called this, I gave a talk on this morning, I called it the ultimate high five, hang 10 beach party celebration. Imagine this beach party. Can you imagine what it must have been like for those people who were in such dark straits an hour, 24 hours before, that he had actually risen, that he was there, and they were celebrating. I can see him jumping and high-fiving and singing all kinds of songs and rejoicing. And it must have been one of the, if not the greatest celebration ever. And we need to keep that in mind as we seek to celebrate this special time. Now, these are challenging times. I hear people talk about getting back to normal or a new normal. I'm reminded of a saying we had in the Marine Corps. The Corps isn't what it used to be, and it never was. Well, the idea is we had glorified notions, and I remember those sweet and wonderful days, and they were gentler times in a way. But there were times of war. There were times in the 30s of depression, in the 40s of World War, in the 50s a nuclear war threat, and then it goes on and on. Now, the turning point on this from the Edgar Casey readings is 1922, the Treaty at Versailles, and Wilson, who was President Wilson, at that treaty, and many just disliked him or hated him, but the readings say that that was the turning point for the world, and they even go so far as to say that Christ was crucified again on the cross of greed. So since then we have World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, Gulf War, Afghanistan, and the world is facing its most serious challenge ever, the most serious challenge ever. I woke up morning a couple of days ago, and there was an expression on my mind. I kept saying, a dying world, a dying world. I didn't know where that came from, and I couldn't even imagine. So I went to the CD that I have with all the readings, and I find that this was the second study group reading that was given. So the ARE was incorporated in 1931, and in September of 31, they began that study group work. And the purpose of this study group was, and all of us who've ever been interested in study group work need to understand this. He said the purpose of this was to serve, to bring light and understanding and hope and faith to what was happening in the world, which was a dying world. Now, I've been talking with you for years about a book by the Jung's followers, Carl Jung's followers, and they have maintained for years in one book, Archetype of the Apocalypse, published in 1998 or 9, they list things going back as the American War between the states. And they're saying that the archetype of the apocalypse is constellating. That is, more and more things are coming into play that show that what this is about. Now, let's be very clear about this. What the resurrection is about, and very few Christians understand this. Jesus said, the things I do, you can do, and greater. I've often joked, the more you literally you believe the Bible, the less inclined you are probably to believe that one. Things that he did, we can do, and greater. What was the resurrection of the body about? Well, the Bible calls it the glorified body. And the readings tell us that glory is the ability to serve. And so why a glorified body? Because having overcome the world, he now in his glorified body can become of even greater service. And the readings support the notion that we too may be resurrected. Everyone says, I believe in the resurrection, but every Christian does, but they don't really believe it in the sense that we're immortal. We're immortal souls, and we have the capability as Jesus of manifesting in physical bodies and remanifesting in a physical body. But those bodies of our own making, we've been working on this for millennia. And so we will come back ourselves. That's what one of the jokes, Peanuts or Dennis the Menace said, the problem with reincarnation is you may have to come back as yourself. And we will come back. Now, I want to call your attention to 3 passages of Scripture that are vital. And one is what's called the Olivet Discourse. It's Matthew 24 and 25. 24 is the strongest language that Jesus or any in the Bible about the days to come. And he says, my words will not pass away, and this generation will not pass away. And it will be a challenge like we've never seen before. What is that about? I can list a dozen things that are happening in the planet right now that are unsustainable. Every day we hear about mass shooting of school children or something. We hear about whales being killed by swallowing up plastic bags. There's a shortage of ice by glaciers for seals and polar bears. The racial thing, one of the biggest, and this is the one that Casey speaks about most, is the disparity of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. And he says in the World Affairs reading, there will come a time in this country when there will be a revolution, blood will be spread in the streets, and brother against brother, and a mob rule. Now we may be coming up on that. But what is the good news? The good news is that these unsustainable things that are happening must come to an end. They require a dramatic end, And at the end of that, as you'll read in Matthew 24, Jesus is coming back. He says, I'm coming back like you saw me go, and I'm coming back like the light in the skies and the clouds. And then there will be 1,000 years of peace. And the Casey readings say, be ye all determined to be in that number. That's going to be a glorious time. Describing it, the readings say, imagine no desire to do evil. What is the purpose of that? The idea is that those souls who have dedicated themselves will come back, reestablish a civilization, societies, organizations, businesses, schools, churches maybe, or spiritual centers, so that, and what the Revelation says, at the end of the 1,000 years, the beast or the dragon will be loosed again. What that means is those souls who have not followed the way of love will be given an opportunity to incarnate in a place where they can make genuine progress. So we are to have a glorified body and resurrected like Jesus' body that we celebrate so happily this very day. Why might we have a resurrected body? Casey says it would be a gift to God. What kind of a gift? A glorified body, as I said, is a body that can serve, that we might more fully serve those of our sisters and brothers that are more troubled and will be coming back seeking a greater aid. So the Revelation says, Jesus says it again and again, be not afraid. And in the letters of John, he says, perfect love casts out fear. Now, if you know something about the chakras in the centers, the self-preservation center is the solar plexus. And it relates to fear. So to preserve yourself physically, you have a fear response and you're prepared to fight. So as those energies rise from the lower centers above, if we're not forgiving, and that's 100%, even our enemies, imagine the spiritual aptitude that Jesus had to say, they know not what they do. Father, forgive them and can you imagine a worse enemy that you might have? We have to forgive everybody, not just for them, but for ourselves, because the energy is going to stop there if we're afraid there and if we're angry there. But the only way we're going to get what Jesus calls the straight and narrow way. Narrow is the path and straight is the way, and few there are that find it. That path is that rising center up to the heavenly heart, the center of the pituitary, the crown, the third eye. And that's where the secret place of the Most High is. So when you read Psalm 91, and it says, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, that's conditional. The rest is glorious, and some people just believe it, that's going to happen because they're a Christian. No, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. When we raise the energies up here, the aura changes. There's Anne used to see the aura, and she'd say, you have a bright band of white light around you. You don't have accidents. You don't get sick easily. And you see there's a shield. I think of it as putting on the whole armor, or put on Christ. It is to put on that light that protects you. So claim the promises of the 91st Psalm and learn how to bring those energies up. And so we have to be patient. We have to face the truth. We have to be forgiving. We have to be put aside self and be selfless. We have to be obedient. We are told Jesus learned obedience through the things that he suffered. Obedient to what? There's only one law, the law of love. And so we've got to be obedient to the law of love. And we can do that because there's a pattern implanted on us. There's an archetype of the Christ within us. And so the Apostle Paul mentions at least a dozen times this mystery, which is Christ in you. So the Spirit of Christ within us, there's a pattern within us. And the glorious thing about the crucifixion, it says the veil of the temple was rent. That's the outer temple, but the body of the temple, and what that means is our access to the Holy of Holies is more accessible to us. And now we have an advocate, a savior, a brother, a master. So what are we to do in these times? And I want to suggest, as I have previously, 3 steps. Aspire, attune, and apply. Aspire means set an ideal, set a high spiritual standard for yourself. Have an aspiration to be a God being. And attune, we have to become meditators. Casey told Martin Blumenthal, who was once Achilles, who died from a minor wound to his heel, he said, you could have lived and gotten healed if you could have been still. And then Blumenthal was told, and in this life you must still learn to be still. Now when the Old Testament says, not in the earthquake, not in the fires, not in the thundering, but in the still small voice, when we pray to God, it's not our yelling and pleading, it's that we have to be centered. All healing comes from within. And as we learn to raise these energies and let the energies come through us, the body knows how to heal itself. So aspire, attune, and apply. Now the application is just do what you know to do. And we all know to do things. The simplest one to me is drink 6 glasses of water a day. If you say I'm sick but I can't get well, you know how to take a step toward wellness. And then if you do what you know to do, the next step can be given. You don't need a medical diagnosis. You just need to do what you know to do, because all healing comes within it. But we have to learn to be still. We have to learn to be meditators. Now, the thing I'd like to close with you is the idea that Casey expresses in, we only live moment by moment. Every moment is a decision. Every moment, as Moses said, I've put before you this day good and evil, prosperity and illness. Choose ye. And so every moment we choose. The easiest thing to move around is an attitude. And the best way I've found to move my attitudes is to start singing songs within myself that raise that vibration. Just humming or singing, even silently, raises those vibrations. Casey says music is the bridge between the infinite and the finite. So we have to bring music into our lives. And if you're troubled or can't concentrate, get the music going and then you can get back on track. So we live moment by moment. Take charge of your attitude, an attitude of gratitude, and then pray. And when, of all of the things that we might do to be of help to other people, Casey says again and again, the most helpful thing is to pray. He says, many a city, many a nation has been saved from destruction by the prayers of a few. And that study group that was told that they were to stand between the living and the dead in this dying world, we're told the best thing they can do is to pray. But our prayers are more effective if we're meditators. Finally, be not afraid, be not afraid, be not afraid. Love casts out fear. And I've delighted in giving a talk on this final thought with you. The mystic William Blake wrote a glorious poem that he interestingly calls Eternity. And he says, he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise. And what we're to do is to claim those moments of joy, to build our faith, to build our hope, to raise our optimism, and renew our commitment as we rededicate ourselves, rededicate our lives, rededicate our faith and service, our education, our prosperity, our prayers, to aiding this change. And I like to use the word travail. The world is in travail. The word travail is used when a woman is about to give birth to a new life. And the world is in travail, about to give birth to the new age. And we are invited to be participants in that. May the Lord be with you. Pray without ceasing. Rejoice in the Lord always. And I thank you.
You shall cross the barren desert, but you shall not die of thirst. You shall wander far in safety, though you do not know the way. You shall speak your words to foreign men, and they shall understand. You shall see the face of God and live. Be not afraid, I go before you, always come, follow me, and I will give you rest. If you pass through raging waters, in the sea you shall not drown. If you walk amid the burning flames, you shall not be harmed. If you stand before the power of hell, and death is at your side, know that I am with you through it all. Be not afraid, I go before you, always come, follow me, and I will give you rest. Blessed are your poor, for the kingdom shall be theirs. Blessed are you that mourn, for one day you shall laugh. And if wicked men insult and hate you all because of me, blessed, blessed